I would say you can allow yourself to be you. You don't have to go along. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. You can be different. I had the gifts I have since I was a child, and they became a curse. They made me a bit different, and I had to tune them out, turn them off, tone them down, but they didn't go away. So I fit in. I allowed things that were not respectful to myself and disrespected myself too. So I would say it is absolutely appropriate and true for you to allow yourself to just be who you are. Say no, say yes, say what's true. You don't have to go along.
Welcome to Allow Yourself podcast. Oh, remember, this is a space to breathe, to listen, and to see beyond differences. It doesn't matter where your politics or your religion or your gender or your ideas. When we listen, we allow ourselves to broaden our perspectives. So we learn. And today we have a marvelous guest, amazing woman that her name is Kate Bears, a soul integration guide and codependency recovery coach with over 30 years of experience. And doing what? Helping people heal after trauma and toxic relationships. Through her program, the 60-day Return to Self, Kate helps others break free from shame and anxiety to live with confidence and authenticity. So, here, welcome, Kate Bears, to this show. Hi, Kate.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Um, you know, when we talk about allow ourselves, I would love to ask you, what comes to your mind when you hear the words allow yourself?
I thought about that question a bit, and it just always comes back to allowing ourselves to just be who we are without the fear of judgment or rejection or um, isolation, harm. And it's easier said than done. It's not just I have to think about it. Oh, I'll just allow myself. It really does take intention and healing because of the things that prevent us from allowing ourselves to be true to who we are. When I say who we are, I mean our original self, who we came as, who we were before the trauma. And I don't just mean the trauma of recent past or adult trauma. I mean the original trauma, the part of us that got left behind, and we focused on who we became. And trauma can look like
Yes,
abandonment. Yes.
it's it sounds so easy, right? To come
Hmm.
back to ourselves, but who who am I? Uh, did you allow yourself to stop and think and see? Or because usually we think all our problems and traumas and limitations are out there, and we try to fix it with another therapy, like, let's see what I buy, let's see what course do I learn. But um, until we allow ourselves, as you said, to see who we are, it's it's not as easy as it sounds, right?
Right. It's really not. Most people that come to me, they've done the therapy, they've done the work, they've really dug in, they're self-aware, they've healed a lot, but they still feel stuck and they don't know why. And that was my turning point, really, after about a decade of an emotionally traumatic, abusive relationship. And I finally woke up. I had my what the fuck am I doing moment, and showed up and got myself out of it finally. And um, 2 years later, after I'd done the work and I'd healed and I'd recovered, I thought I could not get off the mat. I was so stuck. And had not been in my life, no contact for over 2 years. I never saw him again. Um, but I was still so stuck, and I was having high anxiety, And I'd never had anxiety that I was aware of. I was very high functioning. But I was having panic attacks. And in the middle of a panic attack one night, nothing was happening. Nothing around me triggered it. I was watching a show that I had been watching, and it was the last episode, and it was, came to a close. And I was like, oh, and I got up out of my chair, and my heart started pounding, and my head started spinning. And I said, I'm having a stroke. What's happening? And I took myself outside, and I just walked and paced in my driveway and took deep breaths and brought myself, trying to get myself back to in my body. And I heard the most clear crystal voice say, you have run out of runway, turn around. And I had no idea what it meant at the moment, but I knew that it was very clear. And I am of the um training. I absolutely listen when I get hits and downloads. And I took it to the records. I opened my records, the Akashic records, and I just dug in. And what I found was what I was running for, what I was panicked about was not anything outside of me, but a part of me that had been there all along. And she was about 3 years old, and she was terrified of abandonment. And I was abandoning her. I was running away from her. That panic was me. No, no, no. I don't want to look at that. I don't want to turn around. I don't want to see that. I didn't know this, of course, consciously. Um, and she, bless her little heart, she was mired in shame. She truly believed she was bad. Not that she had done something bad, but that she was bad. And in that experience, in that diving deep to the bottom of that well, which took me about a year to get all the way through that, honestly, through the deep diving in that. But I did it my own, my coach even said, this is your work. You need to use your own work to get yourself through this. And I did. And it was just a part that I've never tapped into before. I was aware of my
It's so
beliefs.
hard to do it by yourself, right? You need
It
you need
is.
help to go
Hmm.
to that space that we don't even know why we don't know.
Right.
And it's very interesting because you said abusive relationships, and when we are in, I've been also through there. So it's very interesting how we allow ourselves to be there, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and what is the trigger that we don't know because we're in survival mode. When we are
Right.
at that kind of relationship, we are not living. We are really in survival mode and
Mhm.
reacting and protecting ourselves, just protecting ourselves not to be harmed. Eh, and that's really how we are wired to work from the reptile, from the amygdala, and just to protect and survive ourselves. But it's
Totally.
so hard to flip it, as I call it in my book. No,
Yeah.
flip
Hmm.
it over to to your um, front, right? Where you
Hmm.
can think and really analyze and see it. And that girl of 3 years old didn't understand the difference of what she did to what she was. No,
Yeah.
I like to make that emphasis in the to emphasize that difference that even we adults are so hard to differentiate that we are not what we do. That's what we do is not who we are. So, um, as you say, when we were kids, you say, you're a bad person. No, no, I don't like what you're doing. Or
Yes.
it's, you're a bad person. It's just in the identity and it gets so deep that it's so hard
Yes. And
to
it's so
flip it.
subtle. It can be so innocuous. It can be, your mother telling you to be good when you go to school. You be good, behave yourself. Well, why do you need to tell me that? I am good. I see it in my granddaughters, and I catch myself and I'll say, you be yourself. You just be you. Because that conditioning is not intentional. I didn't have a, a severe abusive childhood, but in my generation, we were spanked, we were switched, we were belted, we were smacked. My mother, she was the disciplinarian. So this woman who loved me that I felt the safest with was also the person that I was terrified of. And I took on the belief that it must be me because I'm I'm getting hurt. And so in this relationship that I'm describing, it was emotional abuse, infidelity. Really, he was living a double life, and I didn't know the entire time I knew him. The entire time from in the beginning of our relationship till I found out, and I didn't leave. Now, this woman sitting in front of you, even the woman that was me at that time, she knew she needed to go. But that little girl was terrified of abandonment. And she stayed. I just locked down. So that's what I help my clients with is, and that's why we stay stuck, is because we work on the current trauma, the getting ourselves through that experience. I worked on that. I healed from that relationship, but I did not reach that child in me yet. And when she came through, she just wanted me to stop and pay attention. And so I developed the process of turning toward the trigger and really working with that part of us. And that's what I help my clients do, because it seems very odd at first, but it really is very organic. It's so we do it all the time, but we don't realize we do it. And that child self hijacks us, and it speaks through us or gets needs met through us, and we think it's us. So why are we melting down? Why am I having anxiety? Why am I, concerned about this? It's not me. I'm here. I'm good. And she
So,
needs me.
so
So
what did you allow yourself to do in order to start listening to your child?
I allowed myself to be still, to stop running away from it, to turn toward it, literally sit down on the ground and hold my child self. And I will, and it sounds insane, but I am a very experiential learner. And if you put me in, I got it. Telling me to do something, it just stays up here. So when I literally practiced and allowed myself to connect with her and listen to her, and the first thing I do, if I'm feeling anxious, if I'm feeling out, if I'm not in myself, I ask, how old are you? That's the first thing I ask. So I allow myself to connect with her first. She'll tell me. And so it's also that because of those of us who do a lot of work and have, 3 decades plus of work that I've done on myself with other people, I'm already gone deep. So this was something that it was really, and there may still be more, but this is the deepest that I've gotten to that really changed everything. I allowed myself to parent her, to love her, to be with her, to be vulnerable. Um, you work in the parts that, it's parts work, it's shadow work, it's it's not your mama's inner child work, as I used to say. It's like we've all done a lot of inner child work. It's really not that. Um, it goes to a whole different place. We're not acting from or retrieving conscious memories. We're not going back to what we remember, which, as you know from working with people, I'm sure, what's the earliest time you can remember? We have a set of available memories that we have. This goes straight to it. You ask that part of you, she will tell you, he will tell you. And when you learn how to listen and connect in that space, it flows through. And
You
so I
know,
work with
a
people in
lot
doing.
of people are afraid to be still
Mm-hmm,
just for not listening that voice
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
because um, they can see in that stillness we know that we see things we don't want to see, that
mm-hmm,
that are not as pleasurable as we think we as we want them to be. And I call it in my book in chapter 11 is what's the story you're telling yourself? No,
mm-hmm.
first, so whose story is that? No, you're because the life we live, is a direct reflection of the stories we're telling ourselves, is the result of the
Absolutely.
stories we're telling ourselves.
Absolutely.
So if we just run in life like most of the people do in this time, is rush, 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 and just turning off fires, reacting to what life brings, doesn't let us the space and the time to allow ourselves to be still and listen what our inside is telling, because it's not only the inner child, it can be the inner adult also, and the inner adolescence also. So what does it mean? And to allow that self to get still. In meditation, a lot of people do that, but it's not just go as deep as meditation. You can just pause
Yes.
and listen. Leave your phone down, take a walk, or I don't know, breathe, as you say that you just trying to calm down breathing. So that's my question. How do you come after that noise that it's outside, and the pressure you get sometimes from people? What are you doing? Are you crazy? Right? What's the way you allow yourself to come back to your stillness in order to know what's your next step?
For me personally, it's putting my feet on the ground outside. I am on the trail. I'm a walk. I get more stillness and more downloads as far as clarity and if I'm struggling with something that I can't get clarity on or can't decide about, it comes. And in the shower, I don't know why that is, but water, somehow running water, washing over me. Those two things really help. And I use the records daily, the Akashic records. I will open those and just ask, what do I need to learn from this? So it stills my mind. There is so much outside stimulus, so much, and that trigger us all the time. But the emotions are going to be triggered because that's what we come with. Those are core emotions. But the feelings we have around that is the stories we tell about it. I'm feeling this way because of this. And that's that rooted experience and unconscious memory that just gets triggered. And then we're off to the races reacting to whatever that is. Um, so it's interesting to use both those parts of my brain, I guess I should say, my intuitive, higher conscious self and my very conscious, aware science brain that knows, some of the ways in which we function in the human brain, that we are creating those pathways constantly. We're creating the neural pathways that we get to choose that. If we are consciously choosing that, we can redirect ourselves through those patterns. So it's the work I used combines that. I use an altar practice too that I actually came to me in the shower once, when I was just, I think I was screaming to God, what is it you want me to know about this? And I got this well, my friend used to ask me when we'd talk if I was struggling with this, have you taken this to the altar? And which meant, have you prayed about it? And, I heard that. I heard her voice. Have you taken this to the, and oh, isn't that what I'm doing? And then this came very clear in an acronym, ALTAR. And it just showed up like it was I think I even wrote it on the shower. So I would remember it, and it started downloading, and it was, so I asked, okay, what does that mean? What do you need me to know about this? And it was ask for direction, listen, be still and listen, trust what you hear, trust the first thing you hear, act on that, take action, and then repeat, ask for the next step. So it's ALTAR.
Wow,
And
that's beautiful.
do
A,
that,
A as
AL,
ask, L
ask.
as listen,
Mhm.
T and trust, A as action, and R as repeat. Oh, that's
Yes,
beautiful.
yes. So it turned into this kind of a GPS for my soul. And I started with, I think I started with 45 days, and I said, I'm just going to use this practice in everything all day. It's everything I can. And I did it in, which route I would take to take the kids to school, or just asking, just practicing with innocuous things that weren't going to make a big, huge difference in my life. And just to get in the practice of listening to my own higher guidance. And it was amazing that the things that was trying to work through and had been trying to work through off and on for years resolved itself within 6 months. came to a complete and peaceful close without my trying to figure it out. That was the thing. Which part am I going to use? My brain that is very problem solving, and I'm good at that, and I can work a puzzle great, and I love to do that. It wasn't working. And I was stumped. I was stuck. And so I still use it. That was, oh my, 20 years ago. Use it all the time. It's in it's that one of my things I offer to people is my stuck to unstoppable process. So I go into detail about it. So it's those kind of things, like how do I get still? I listen, I stop and I listen. Meditation, I'm not a huge meditator. It's hard for me to sit still. Um, and I just accept that about myself. So walking meditation works wonderfully for me. If I'm gonna sit still and intentionally hear, it is with an intention of some kind. I will practice that, but I've done it enough to know it's not my thing. So I don't, a lot
But
of
it's
people do it.
beautiful because
Yeah.
you don't need to meditate. Each person has
Mm,
its own way
yeah.
to listen. But first, you need to be open and allow yourself to
Yes.
listen and to trust the answers. Because
Yes.
you know, there is a lot of asking. People pray a lot and they go
Mhm, mhm.
to um to religion and they just ask for a lot of things, but they don't allow to listen.
Yes.
Because the listen comes in a whisper. Usually it comes in the shower, okay, not just I need to rush and take the shower. But
Yes.
it's like a lot of things coming in the shower too, and
Yes.
talking about the shower, one of my therapists, one that I was really doubting myself, and I am a bad person, when all that I figured out at the age of 35 that it wasn't me that was wrong, okay, because I was all the time the wrong one. So in the shower, he told me, imagine that the water are just small pieces of gold uh, covering you. So that's an amazing and powerful vision, no? And
Mhm.
then you are just gold. That's your value. You're really valuable. And
Oh.
then listen what that is, because gold has another thing too. It's not just value, it's a amazing conductor of communication. They use it in every single cable, the high quality cables. So
Mhm.
yes, to connect yourself in the shower. But going to the meditation that you were talking, um, that's why I don't call it meditation. I call it to myself pause. It's just give
Yeah.
a minute. It can be 1 minute, it can be 30 seconds, it can be 5 minutes, half an hour. Just allow yourself to listen to that whisper. And I don't know if it happens to you, but I'm in my second adolescence, and at this stage of life, we get up at 3:30 in the morning. So I used to fight with it, to go back to sleep,
Mhm.
until I figured out that it's the time when I listen the most,
Mhm.
and the whispers I get and the uh, solutions I get for a lot of things uh, is amazing. No,
Mhm.
just pausing. Don't fight your sleep. Don't fight it. Just
Right.
listen. After you listen, you will go back to sleep. But you
Mhm.
need to listen. That's why you're being waking up by your higher power. And after being in an abusive relationship, and you treat so many people in toxic relationships, one of the hardest things I think that uh, struggles that we have, challenges, is to set boundaries.
Yes.
So how do you allow yourself, or how do you recommend to allow to set the boundaries for a healthier relationship?
Well, that's a wonderful question. And I think we misinterpret boundaries so much, what they are, how we're supposed to create them, set them, hold them. Boundaries really aren't about keeping people out unless we need to, which is very important. We should, but they're really about honoring ourselves in. And I call them our hula hoop. Um, Years ago, that just came to me, and it was, if everybody had a hula hoop, it would look really funny, but you would know where other people stop and you start, and where you stop and other people begin, you would know. It'd be very clear. Well, we do. We have our space in the world. It's our space, and in that space, we have the birth-given, God-given right to experience our life in whatever way we choose. And so does everybody else. And that's the hard part, is so does everybody else. So there could be someone standing on the other side of the room yelling at me. And I think that setting a boundary for them is telling them they can't yell at me, which is untrue. They absolutely can yell at me. They're in their hula hoop. I can take my hula hoop and leave the room. I don't have to be in that space. And that's the beauty of the freedom of that, the sovereignty of that. Whatever we experience in our own hula hoop is our right and our choice. If they're in my home, absolutely, I can escort them out of my home. I can call whatever I have to do. That's a boundary. But the root of boundaries starts within us, honoring who we are, knowing our preferences, knowing what feels right, knowing our values, knowing our own value, knowing what is morally in alignment for us is crucial. So knowing who we are is getting it back again to that true self. And we're influenced by so many things through our whole life. Religion, our parents, I mean, everything. We're influenced by society and how we
Teachers.
think we're supposed to be. And then when we get into the world and we feel like people are bombarding us or violating us, we don't know who we are. How do we hold that space? So we have to get back to that. What is true for us in our original true soul of who we are? What is important for me? How do I want to be spoken to? How do I want to move through the world? If I maintain that for myself, and I know that in that space, I honor that, and I don't violate my own hula hoop by putting it down and stepping over it and getting in somebody else's business or um, controlling other people's behavior. I've laid my hula hoop down and I've stepped out of it. That's not my responsibility. If I own my own, from that space, I'm able to create that respect and lines or boundaries with other people because I'm clear. And when you're energetically clear, you sometimes don't have to say a word. I have
And
backed a person up across the room without saying a word, only because my mama bear came out, and I was so clear, and I didn't have to say a word, and they backed off. I didn't even know well, it wasn't even intentional. It was just in the moment. So you know how powerful energy is. So when you're clear, your boundaries are clear. When your boundaries are clear, they're not walls, they're buffers from other people, language and communication. There's several options I have that I offer people depending on the circumstance. There's a 4-step process of informing, requesting, insisting, or leaving. Hey, you're on my foot. Please get off my foot. Get off my foot. Move my foot. We can sit there all day long and try to get someone to stop, but eventually we have to take responsibility for ourselves. Not eventually, but you know what I mean? Inevitably, if they're not receiving what we're putting out, then we have the responsibility to take care of ourselves. There's the old assertiveness formula. I feel when what I want is, will you do that? Which I've morphed into a more interdependent framework of, when this happens, I feel this way. It would help if this happened. Are you willing to do that? And then it's not about other people. It doesn't create that codependency on them changing for me to have a healthy boundary. Um, white light meditation.
there are so
You
many,
know?
so many diffusings,
Yes.
diffusers in that hula hoop that you call,
Yes.
in
Yep.
that circle, that since we are very, I don't know if in this generation, but in our generation, since we were very small, they taught us that we have to please others first, that adults always right?
Yes.
That was one
Yeah.
of the sayings. The adults are always right. And it took me, I don't know, I was like 19 to when somebody says, not because he's an adult, he's right. It's like you cannot defend yourself. You cannot, especially when you have been abused or been molested or you've been um, abused in even with your words. That circle, that hula hoop does not exist. It's like in some childhoods, it's like they planted that you don't deserve to be respected.
Right.
So we don't even know what it means to be
Right.
respected. And we don't even know. I have met a lot of my a lot of clients that they don't know they have an inner circle that that the energy is like I am the one that opens the door if they can come into this inner
Yeah.
circle or no. It's
Mhm.
like there is no boundary there, so everyone can enter. So in my intimacy space, and it's not that you're in an elevator and because of the room they can get so close. Okay, that's the situation. But in one, where is your, no? Where is
Mhm.
your boundary? It reminds me that when my kids were in their teenagers and they went out dancing, they say, "Oh, I don't like to go dancing there because people are so tight one to each other and so close. I don't feel comfortable."
Mhm.
So I remember saying, "So just imagine that you have a circle, your hula hoop, no, energetically. So just do it like that. And you will see, just enter the dance floor with imagination that this is your circle. Yeah, that's your hula hoop. And he says, it works. People don't pass there. They don't go. Yes, because you
Energy.
energetically you can set that boundary. And it's so beautiful said, Kate, that it's the boundaries are the honoring in, no, honoring
Mhm.
ourselves in is so beautiful place because it's not about fighting with others and
Right.
it's not telling them you cannot talk to me like that. It's like you you're really holding your space and says you can say whatever they want, whatever you want. It doesn't hit me. It doesn't enter me, and that's the main thing. Boundaries. You can say whatever they. We can see it today in social media. So many people, so many
Yeah.
reactions that they are. Is what do you allow yourself in?
Yes.
So that's a completely different story. They can
Mm.
say whatever they want, but what I usually ask myself, if it hit me, what wound do need to heal that it really triggered me? Because it
Yes.
triggered me, there is a wound.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where we turn toward the triggers. We ask that trigger, what's happening? How old are you? And from that place, we can get the information of we can go straight to it, what's being triggered. And that learning how to connect with that part and really listen. And sometimes we feel it, sometimes we hear it, sometimes it's visual. Really depends on how the person receives. Um, I tend to receive it physically. And so if I say, where is it in my body? Then I can focus on that part of my body. So we're tuning into people that way. But also, and back to the boundary thing for a second, that the language, when you say I can't, I shift that to I'm not willing or I am willing. If I own it, I am or am not willing to stand here while you talk like that, then that's my choice. And I am empowered by that. And it's very hard to argue with someone when you say, if someone says, I'm not willing to do that. Oh, okay. Versus you can't do that. Or I'm not willing for you to talk to me that way. So I'm going to walk away versus you can't talk to me. Yes, I can. People will fight back if you tell them they can't do something, even if it's your boundary. You can't come in my house. I'm not willing for you to come in my house. Yeah, that's ownership. empowerment. And that's in that inside core of your hula hoop in the
Yeah,
center
and
of
you're
that.
talking in the I word. You're not
Yes.
talking in them. It's what I don't feel. I'm willing, no, just not to
I
let
am willing
allow
to do
you.
this, I'm not willing to do that. So
Yeah.
it shifts it, and I'll tell you, when you start, and this is a lot of my codependency work in the recovery part of that, people, when you start having healthy boundaries and using different language, the people that are used to you people pleasing or going along to get along or saying yes to everything or letting you arguing with you or engaging in that way, they kind of freak out a little bit. Why are you talking like that? But they acclimate. And I always tell people, tell your
Or
people.
they escalate.
Yes. Well,
Or
that
they
too, but you have to
escalate.
hold, it has to stay so secure, so sacred in there. And I always encourage people, tell your people what you're doing. Tell your close, that inner circle you're talking about. Tell them, I'm working on something. I'm learning something new. It might sound different for a while. I'm going to be using some new language. Hey, can I practice something with you? And it engages people in your process instead of them looking at you like you're insane. And why are you talking like that? I have to tell this funny story because it always reminds me of it. When we were young, there's five of us kids, and one time, I don't know, my mom was going through a phase and she just started hugging us all the time. And she was affectionate, but she was overly affectionate and holding on. And all the five of us were like, what's happening? Did somebody die or what's happening? We didn't know what was happening, why she was doing that. And then years later, it faded. She stopped doing it. But I asked her when I was growing up, I said, why did you do that? And she said that, I think it was Dr. Spock or something, said that kids needed 10 hugs a day to build healthy self-esteem or something. And I said, well, why didn't you just tell us? We could have hugged each other. That would have been great. Or we could have got with the program. But we were all like, why are you doing that? It was freaking us out. So I always think about that when you start doing things different without giving notice, without just informing, hey, especially your close people, um, they freak out a little bit. They can push it away instead of moving in and supporting you or engaging with it, even wanting to do it themselves. So you really get a lot more cooperation by sharing what's happening. Now, with people that are toxic or unhealthy for you, you might still inform and say, I'm practicing having better boundaries. So, some things are going to change, maybe not a threat, but letting them know. So I think if possible, it's always a good idea to let your people know that you're growing. And I mean, why not? I think it's exciting. Hey, I'm going to
I'm
have a
gr-
baby. It's like you're going to see it. He's going to look different around here instead of just showing up and you're 6 months pregnant. It's things might look different. I'm going to change.
who are you talking to? Who
Yeah.
are you talking to?
Yeah.
It's really interesting because what one of the points that you're really saying and coming emphasizing is the wording you use. Be listen to the words that you use to others, but as well listen to the words that you use with yourself, because
Yes.
the words that you use with yourself is you are showing others what you allow yourself to use with you. So,
Absolutely.
if the changing of the vocabulary is, it's like, what are you talking about? What's that word? How come you? And especially when you change the wording from "you cannot do that" to "I'm not willing to receive that." eh, it's much more powerful, as you say. You're not giving orders. You are
Right.
just protecting yourself and honoring yourself. And we have been taught not to protect ourselves,
Right.
but to fight others. The
Right.
fighting,
Everything external.
yeah,
So my definition of codependency is everything external. My sense
yeah.
of value, worth, acknowledgement, validation, acceptance, love, everything exists out there. And if you are out there feeding me that, then I know I am valuable, I'm worthy, I'm accepted, I'm valid. Versus that's an inside job. But when we go external, we're looking for other people to pour into us versus we have to pour into us. And that's where the return to self comes in, which is, we hear it. You just love yourself. Well, great. Do you have a manual for that? Because if I knew how to love myself, I'd be doing it. Now I can say, I do. I have a manual for that. Because what we're not loving is our true self. We're turning on our true self. We're turning on our child self. And when that child shows up and is struggling in some way, children that are dysregulated, those children still live inside of us. So when we're dysregulated, it's the child in us that's dysregulated. We are the only ones now that can help that child regulate. You can't learn it. You can learn it, but it's difficult to learn it as an adult with other people and depend on other people. You're not going to go back to your mom or your dad and get them to co-regulate with you. It's not probably going to happen. But you have to co-regulate with your child self. That's the breathe.
I call it take your child out of the basement.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
help him come up step by step. It doesn't matter because
yes,
it's afraid he doesn't see the
yes,
light sometimes. So for so long, just help him come out of the of the
absolutely.
of the
And
basement
then
is
nurture that
simple.
child.
Ah,
Love that.
nurture.
One of my favorite things to bring you back is how would you talk to a child that came to you and said they were scared, or came to you and said that they felt like they were bad, or came to you and said nobody likes them, or they were afraid you were going to leave? What would you say? Would you tell them, oh, you're fine, go on and play? Would you say, that's not happening? Would you invalidate? Hopefully, it makes us stop and think, how would I actually speak to a child that needed something from me? Um,
Do
and
you know a
give that
phrase?
to our child self. Yeah,
Sorry that I interrupted
no,
you.
that's okay.
Uh,
Well, giving
uh,
that to ourselves is loving ourselves. That's how we learn how to love ourselves, is love that part of us that's still there, that's been there since before we ever made any decision that we were not lovable, worthy of, valuable, good. That part of us is still there and just waiting for us to come and get it, reconnect, reclaim, reintegrate back into who we are. And
it took like for me like 10 years, more maybe 20, to convince my mom, okay, after I found out that I'm not wrong, I'm not the wrong one, okay, to change her because I grew with we were five kids also. I'm the youngest.
okay.
So I grew with, oh, you making problems again? That phrase
Mhm,
was all the time with me.
mhm, mhm,
Okay? Till adulthood, till 35, 40, you're making problems again. And every time I answer my mom, defending myself is not making problems.
mhm,
No? Because she didn't know how to defend herself ever. She didn't defend herself. She just quiet. And
mhm.
so it took me time to understand also that she didn't know how to defend herself. That's something else.
Yeah.
But since I was a little kid, I was really protecting myself. Is like, you don't do that to me. No, it's like, no, I'm protecting myself. I'm
Mhm,
defending myself. I'm defending myself. And as an adult, in my adulthood, it took me a lot of work to change the voice of my mom to, oh, she's defending herself. No, the approval that we try to find all the time. And okay, just think that I'm making problems. Okay, I assume the role of I'm the bad one in the family. Okay,
mhm,
but I'm not. I It took me a lot of time to unfold that and say, no, I'm protecting myself and I am deserved to be treated differently, not just like that. And until one day we were with my aunts and they start telling me about my weight and my figure and my ass and how big I am, and that I asked them, that I answered them in a way that they didn't like it very much because they were not used to, as my mom, and said to my mom, Pearl is my mom's name, why don't you tell her anything? look how she's talking to me. And my mom said, she's defending herself. So I said,
Oh,
oh my
oh,
God. Oh,
full
see,
circle. Good, good.
the full
Yeah,
circle. But it's so important to listen to those words that we used to listen when we were um, in our childhood and flip them over to give
yes,
them a completely different meaning. So,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
if you have to go to your teenager and whisper her at that age, what to allow herself that she didn't allow at that time, that she had a limited belief at that time, what would you say?
To my teenage self, that
Yes.
it was, I would say, you can allow yourself to be you. You don't have to go along. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to do what everybody else is doing. You can be different. I had the gifts I have since I was a child, and I, they became a curse. They made me a bit different, and
Mm-hmm.
um, so I had to tune them out, turn them off, tone them down, but they didn't go away. So I fit in. I allowed things that were not respectful to myself and disrespected myself too. So I would I would say it is absolutely appropriate and true for you to allow yourself to just be who you are. Say no, say yes, say what's true. You don't have to go along. I would remind her she is brilliant and beautiful and funny and smart and here for something big to remind her I would remind her who she is. I think, and I do often because she shows up a bit. It's not only our child, because that child self, wherever that part of us, that original decision and belief that was rooted, that part's been with us through our entire life. And so that part was with me as a teenager and with me in my early 20s and as a young mother and she's been with me all along. That's the thing. She's the one that kept me in that marriage that I really, for all practical purposes and respect for myself and reality, should have left 5 years and 2 weeks before I did. But I didn't. And
Oh,
it
it
was not
wasn't that bad.
me.
I left 15 years after I should.
And it was not, gratefully, I was not physically abused, but I was emotionally and he was, yeah,
Sometimes it's worse to be
emotionally
emotionally
traumatizing.
abused.
I
Yeah.
lost me, completely lost myself. And that is not me. But what the flip, to use your work, to use your language, is that because of that experience, I had never gone to that level. I'd never gone to that depth. And because I did, it changed me and it changed my work and it changed how I work and serve other people and it changed how I show up in the world. It took some time because who I thought I was before that relationship, which only was not even quite 10 years, um, wasn't even the whole me. So even though I thought I was, so this now, fast forward, I've taken everything that I used during that time where I just went to the depth of that and I brought it into a really um, tangible form. So I've got 60 days. So people, because I cut to the chase of it. Sometimes when we know a lot, we've done a lot of work, we have to move it aside. It takes a lot of time to like move that out of the way so we can get to what's now.
To turn
Um,
it around, as you
yeah,
say.
because our ego says, well, I know that, I know that, I know that. No, you don't. This is not something you know. So it really helps to just go with that, whatever's there at the moment. And that practice of doing that just changed everything. So now the return to self is the 60-day deep dive that I offer to people that it unstacks the building blocks from where we started, but you don't have to go back through the trauma. And I think that's one of the things in the healing industry in the field is we focus so much on the trauma and healing that, which is necessary, but leave behind the part we were before the trauma, and she's still back there, and they're whole. That part is still whole, but we've abandoned. So the abandonment I was so terrified of was me abandoning myself. I didn't know. We don't do this consciously. And
Yeah.
there was
But
shame
we
in her
put
too.
layers to protect
Yeah,
ourselves and to
yeah,
really go to and to really go to the core, like I call it, back to the core, is taking out layers and layers and
mm,
layers to really be who you came with the curiosity, with the especially with the curiosity, with the courage,
yeah.
with the calmness, with the peace in mind,
Kindness,
yeah,
compassion,
with the
empathy.
kindness,
Yes,
compassion, yes,
all of that.
all that, yeah. And it has been so beautiful the conversation that we had, because we have so many things in common,
Mhm.
and as we treat that, we know that we have to go back to the core, that to go back to
Yes.
yourself, each one in a completely different way. But that's the message. It's to discover again the humanity we have inside, the valuable we are, and it's not what we do; it's who we are and what
Uh,
comes from the heart. So, if you would have to tell the audience, these people that are listening to us, in one sentence, what would you recommend them to allow themselves?
to reconnect and reclaim and reintegrate the truth of who they are, and doing
Wow.
whatever it takes to do that. Because that is really the journey that we do know how to reconnect. Um, we know how to reclaim. We can own it. The reintegration is sometimes where we fall short, because to integrate that part back in is to bring the wholeness back. Integration is bringing all the parts together as a whole. And so if we've got split off parts of us that we left behind, bringing them back in and integrating them back in is what creates our wholeness. And that's what our authenticity, our freedom, our joy, our humanity, all of those things, that's where that lives, in
And
that
it's in
wholeness.
the present moment. It's not in the past and it's not in the future.
Mm-mm.
It's in
No,
the
it's
present.
here.
It's here in this moment.
Yes. So we
Yes.
don't have to spend years and years in therapy. We don't have to dig, for all that time in there. We can go straight to it and bring those parts back into the fold, back into wholeness. And that's what I would recommend anyone that's feeling stuck, that's struggling with anxiety, um, panic, that feels like they're in toxic relationships or patterns that they see. Absolutely. That's the game. That's the name of the game, is to get into direct connection with the truest, most divine self and bring that part back into wholeness.
That's beautiful. Beautiful. To, to our higher self, to our higher power of us. So
The soul integration. Yes.
this soul integration. Wow, beautiful. Oh, Kate, I think we can talk for 2 hours more, but the time
I
is
would love to, and I know you're
yes,
busy, and so am I.
yeah.
Let
So we'll connect after we.
Yeah.
But I want to really thank you very much for sharing your heart, your journey, your experiences, and mainly your wisdom. Um, this conversation is a powerful reminder to everyone that allowing ourselves is not a one time thing, it's a process, it's a daily practice of courage, of kindness, of compassion, of grace, of self trust. So,
Mm.
for everyone listening, may you give yourself permission to take up space, to rest, to pause, and to begin again in order to reconnect and really to become all what you meant to be. So thank you very much, Kate,
Thank you.
and
Thank you so
we'll
much.
keep
I loved it. It's great. Thank you for having me.